The airport buzzed with the sound of rolling suitcases, overhead announcements, and the soft hum of travelers lost in their own journeys. Among the crowd, a boy stood alone, his figure small but his presence quietly determined. Tyrese Carter adjusted the worn strap of his backpack and took a steadying breath. This wasn't just another trip. This was the trip, the one he had dreamed about for years. At 14, Tyrese already knew more about airplanes than most adults. He could name the models just by hearing the engines hum. He knew about altitudes, flight paths, and cockpit controls. His room at home was covered in posters of jets and hand-built models of his favorite planes. But this trip wasn't just about a passion for aviation, it was about honoring a promise. His late mother, Danielle Carter, had been the first person to ever tell him he could fly. Not just in planes, but in life. She believed he was meant for something bigger than the small neighborhood where they had lived. Before she got sick, she would take him to the little airfield outside the city, standing by the fence as planes lifted off into the sky. Every time, she would whisper the same thing. One day, baby, you're gonna soar higher than the clouds. Now today, he was finally making good on that promise. Tyrese had been accepted for a summer program at the prestigious Aviators of Tomorrow Academy in Houston, a place his mother had dreamed he would one day attend. His heart beat faster just thinking about it. He stepped up to the check-in counter, ticket and ID carefully tucked into a folder. His sneakers squeaked slightly on the polished floor. As he approached, he caught the eye of the woman behind the desk. She looked to be in her early 40s, with sharply styled hair and nails that clicked irritably on the keyboard. Her name tag read Miss Perkins. She barely glanced at Tyrese before frowning, as if his very presence annoyed her. Next, she said flatly, without a hint of warmth. Tyrese swallowed his nerves and stepped forward, offering a small, polite smile. "Hi, ma'am. I'm checking in for Flight 672 to Houston." He handed her the folder carefully, both hands trembling slightly. Miss Perkins took it with a sigh, flicking through the papers without looking at him. After a few seconds, she glanced over the folder at Tyrese, her eyes narrowing. "And where are your parents?" she asked sharply. Tyrese stood up straighter. "I'm traveling alone. My dad booked the ticket for me." He tried to keep his voice steady. He had all the right papers, his consent form, his itinerary, everything. Miss Perkins arched an eyebrow. She leaned back in her chair, looking him up and down slowly, from his old jeans to his frayed jacket to his well-worn sneakers. Her lips curled into a smirk. "Kids like you," she said with a small laugh, "can't even afford the snacks here, let alone a flight to Houston." Tyrese felt the words slice into him. His face burned with embarrassment. A couple nearby passengers glanced over, curiosity flickering in their eyes. He tried to will himself invisible. I have my ticket right there," he said, pointing to the folder, his voice barely above a whisper. Miss Perkins snatched the boarding pass with a huff, examining it like it was counterfeit money. Then, with a dramatic shake of her head, she began tearing the corner of the pass. "This looks fake to me," she said loudly, so that even more people turned to look. "You're not going anywhere today, young man." Tyrese froze, panic rising in his chest. He had worked so hard for this, studied so hard, dreamed so hard. His mother's dream was in his hands, and this woman was about to tear it apart. He wanted to argue, to fight back, but the lump in his throat was too big. His mind raced with a million things he wanted to say. "My mom wanted this for me. I deserve to be here. You don't know me." But all that came out was a choked, "Please, ma'am, it's real." Miss Perkins ignored him, reaching for the phone at her desk. "Security will sort this out," she muttered under her breath. Tyrese's hands clenched into fists at his sides. He looked around helplessly, but no one moved to help him. For a moment, the dreams he had clung to, the soaring flights, the cockpits, the future he and his mom had imagined, seemed to crash down around him, shattered on the cold, polished floor of the airport terminal. He blinked back tears. "I can't cry. Not here. Not now." Miss Perkins lifted the phone, her finger hovering over the keypad. Then, just as all hope seemed lost, a voice Tyrese would recognize anywhere, rang out above the noise. "Is there a problem here?" Tyrese turned around, his heart leaping. There, striding toward him with authority and power, was a man in a sharp navy blue suit, an airline badge gleaming proudly on his chest. Tyrese's eyes widened in shock. "Dad," he breathed. The entire terminal seemed to freeze as the man approached. His polished shoes clicked sharply on the floor, and the way he moved made it clear this was someone important. Miss Perkins slowly lowered the phone, her smug expression melting into confusion. She stood up straighter, smoothing her uniform as if that could erase what had just happened. Tyrese's heart thudded in his chest. Relief, pride, and confusion all crashed over him at once. He hadn't expected his dad to be here. Last he knew, his father had meetings all day. The man stopped beside Tyrese and placed a firm, reassuring hand on his son's shoulder. His deep brown eyes, so much like Tyrese's, scanned the scene with cool precision. "I asked," he said again, his voice calm but full of authority, "is there a problem here?" Miss Perkins stammered, her confidence cracking. "Oh, well, sir, this young man was trying to board with questionable paperwork. I was about to call security." Tyrese felt the injustice of it bubbling inside him, but his father's hand gave a small squeeze, grounding him. "Wait. Watch. Let the truth unfold." The man held out his other hand for the ticket. Miss Perkins hesitated, then reluctantly handed it over. He looked it over once, twice, and then gave a soft, almost disbelieving laugh. "You thought this was fake?" he asked, lifting an eyebrow. "You really thought this boarding pass, printed from our corporate booking portal, was fake?" Miss Perkins opened her mouth, but no words came out. She looked back and forth between Tyrese and the man in the suit, realizing, perhaps too late, that she had made a serious mistake. The man straightened to his full height, his presence commanding the room. "Allow me to introduce myself," he said, his voice cutting through the awkward silence. "I'm Marcus Carter, Vice President of Operations for Horizon Air." He let the title hang in the air just long enough for its weight to settle. A few gasps echoed from nearby passengers. Someone whispered, "That's the VP." Tyrese stood a little taller, a warm surge of pride filling him. His dad wasn't just anyone. He was the Marcus Carter, the man who had worked his way up from a baggage handler to an executive at one of the country's most respected airlines. "And this young man," Marcus continued, his voice softening as he looked at Tyrese, "is my son." Miss Perkins paled visibly, clutching the counter for support. I didn't know, sir," she stammered. "I'm so sorry. I just thought." "You thought because of how he looks," Marcus cut in, his tone sharper now, "that he didn't belong here. That he couldn't possibly be traveling legitimately. Isn't that right?" Miss Perkins flushed an angry red, but she didn't deny it. Marcus shook his head slowly. "You embarrassed him. You tried to humiliate him. Over what? His clothes? His skin?" He let the question linger. "We are better than this. Horizon Air is better than this." Tyrese's throat tightened again, but for a different reason this time. He had spent so long fighting against assumptions at school, in stores, on the streets. Seeing his father call it out so publicly filled him with something he hadn't expected. Hope. Marcus turned to his son, his expression softening. "Come on, son. Let's get you checked in properly." He led Tyrese around the counter, taking a fresh boarding pass from the printer himself. Miss Perkins stepped aside, silent and shaken. As Marcus printed the ticket, he added, almost casually, "By the way, Miss Perkins, maybe you should review the list of scholarship recipients we proudly sponsor every year. You'll find Tyrese Carter's name at the top." Miss Perkins blinked rapidly, at a loss for words. Handing the new boarding pass to Tyrese, Marcus crouched slightly so they were eye level. "You're not just flying today," he said quietly. "You're carrying your mother's dream with you. Remember that." Tyrese nodded, his throat too tight to speak. He clutched the pass in his hand like a sacred relic. As they walked away from the counter, Marcus rested a proud arm across Tyrese's shoulders. People stepped aside for them now, some offering awkward nods or murmured apologies. Tyrese didn't look back. He didn't need to. He wasn't here to prove anything to them. He was here for his mother, for himself, and for the future he was about to claim. They reached the security line, and Marcus stopped. "This is as far as I can go," he said, a bittersweet smile on his face. "You good?" Tyrese nodded. "I'm ready, Dad." Marcus leaned in, whispering so only Tyrese could hear. "No matter what anyone says, no matter what they think they know, you were born to soar." Tyrese swallowed the lump in his throat and hugged his father tightly. As he moved through the security checkpoint, he didn't feel small anymore. He felt unstoppable. Above him, a plane roared into the sky. Tyrese smiled. Soon, it would be his turn. Tyrese moved through the airport, his heart still pounding, but now for a different reason. The sting of MS. Perkins' words had been replaced with a feeling he could barely describe, something bigger, something stronger. As he made his way down the long, carpeted hall toward his gate, he caught sight of himself in a large window. There he was, small backpack slung over his shoulder, hoodie zipped halfway up, sneakers just a little scuffed from a season of saving and planning. No, he didn't look like the kids on the fancy travel brochures, but he looked like someone who had earned every step he was about to take. When he reached the gate, The flight attendant smiled warmly at him. "Good morning. Are you Tyrese Carter?" He blinked. Yes, ma'am." Her smile widened. "We've been expecting you. Here's your boarding pass. I've upgraded you to a window seat in comfort class, courtesy of Mr. Carter." Tyrese's face lit up. Comfort class. That meant extra legroom, free snacks, even a better view of the sky. "Thank you," he said, his voice soft but genuine. "You're very welcome," the attendant said kindly. "And Tyrese." He looked up. "You belong here. Never forget that." The words hit him harder than he expected. He nodded, swallowing past the sudden lump in his throat. When they called his group, Tyrese stepped forward, feeling like he was carrying his whole family with him, his hard-working father, his late mother's dreams, and now, maybe even something more, a mission. The plane smelled of coffee and fresh upholstery. Tyrese clutched his backpack tightly, following the numbers to his row. He found his seat quickly, a window seat, just like his mom had always said was the best. He slid into place, storing his backpack beneath the seat in front of him. As he buckled his seatbelt, he placed his hand lightly against the cool plastic wall of the plane, just under the window. His mom used to tell him stories about flying, how it felt like touching the edge of heaven. He closed his eyes for a moment, remembering her voice. "One day, Ty," she'd say, brushing his hair back, "you'll sit by the window, looking down on the clouds, and you'll know you can do anything." The thought made him smile. The seats around him began to fill with passengers, some reading, some talking, some looking just as nervous as he felt. A kind-looking woman took the aisle seat beside him. She offered a quick smile before settling into her book. The captain's voice crackled through the speakers. "Good morning, folks. Welcome aboard Horizon Air Flight 712 with service to Clearwater City. Weather's looking clear all the way. We'll be pushing back shortly." Tyrese grinned. Clearwater City, that's where the prestigious Everett Flight Academy was located. The academy his mother had circled in catalogs, dreamed about late at night when she thought no one was listening. And now, he was going there. The engines rumbled to life beneath him, and the plane began to taxi toward the runway. Tyrese pressed his forehead lightly against the window, watching the world outside rush by planes, luggage carts, men in neon vests waving batons. He could barely sit still. Every cell in his body vibrated with excitement. Then, the plane paused at the end of the runway. A moment of stillness. A deep breath. And then power. The engines roared, and Tyrese felt himself pushed back into his seat as the plane sped down the runway. Faster, faster, until the ground dropped away beneath them, and they soared into the sky. He let out a soft laugh, part amazement, part pure joy. Through the window, he saw the city grow smaller and smaller, the buildings shrinking into toy blocks, the roads into silver threads. Clouds loomed ahead, fluffy and brilliant against the blue. The plane sliced through them like a dream. Tyrese leaned back, closing his eyes, feeling a tear slit free. He didn't wipe it away. It wasn't sadness. It was everything, his mom, his dad, every moment that had brought him here, stitched together into a single thread of gratitude. The flight attendant came by with a tray of snacks. She placed a bag of pretzels and a cup of apple juice on his tray with a wink. "On the house, Mr. Carter." Tyrese smiled. Maybe Ms. Perkins had been wrong. Maybe kids like him did belong in places like this, high above the clouds, chasing dreams that people said were too big. He sipped his juice and pulled out his worn notebook from his backpack. On the front page, written in his mother's neat handwriting, was a single sentence. "The sky is not the limit, my love. It's only the beginning." Tyrese flipped to a blank page and began to sketch. Planes, airports, runways, images of the future he knew, now more than ever, was waiting for him. Outside the window, the sun broke through the clouds, flooding the cabin with golden light. And Tyrese Carter, young and determined, flew on. The landing gear clunked beneath the plane as it descended toward Clearwater City. Tyrese peered eagerly out the window. Below, neat neighborhoods, winding rivers, and long stretches of green fields came into view. In the distance, the sleek, silver outline of an airport shimmered in the afternoon sun. The plane touched down with a soft bounce, the wheels humming along the runway before slowing to a smooth roll. Tyrese's heart raced. This was it. He was here. The flight attendants went through their cheerful landing announcements, and passengers began gathering their belongings. Tyrese double-checked his backpack, making sure he had everything: his notebook, his academy paperwork, the small photograph of his mother he always carried. As he moved through the jet bridge and into the bright, bustling airport, a sea of excitement washed over him. People hurried past with rolling suitcases and warm greetings, but Tyrese wasn't nervous anymore. he spotted a man in a navy blazer holding a large sign that read, "Welcome, Everett Flight Academy guests." That was him. The man waved when he saw Tyrese approaching. "You must be Tyrese Carter," he said, smiling broadly. "I'm Mr. Donovan, one of the Academy liaisons. We've been expecting you." Tyrese grinned shyly and shook his hand. "Nice to meet you, sir." Mr. Donovan led him to a shuttle park just outside the terminal. It was a bright white van with the Everett Flight Academy logo painted on the side, a pair of silver wings against a blue sky. Inside the shuttle, a few other kids sat chatting nervously. Some were dressed in crisp khakis and polos, others in jeans and sneakers like Tyrese. It didn't matter. There was an unspoken bond between them all. They were here to chase the sky. First time flying alone, a girl with curly hair and braces asked Tyrese as he slid into the seat beside her. "Yeah," he said, chuckling. "First time visiting a flight academy, too." She laughed. "Same. I'm Mia. My mom's a flight attendant. She's been telling me stories about planes since I could walk." "My mom loved planes, too," Tyrese said softly. She always dreamed I'd come here." Mia smiled warmly. "Sounds like she would have been really proud." The shuttle ride didn't take long. As they approached the academy gates, Tyrese pressed his face to the window, awestruck. The campus sprawled across acres of land, gleaming white buildings, shimmering runways stretching into the distance, and rows of small training planes lined up like toy models come to life. A tall, curved sign welcomed them. "Everett Flight Academy, where dreams take flight." Tyrese's chest tightened. He could almost hear his mother's voice whispering in his ear, "You're doing it, baby. You're really doing it." The shuttle pulled up to the main building, where instructors and staff stood waiting to greet the new students. As Tyrese stepped off the van, he caught the smell of jet fuel and fresh-cut grass, an oddly comforting combination. Inside the Welcome Center, the group gathered in a bright atrium filled with photographs of past students in pilot uniforms, smiling beside the cockpits of their first flights. Mr. Donovan handed out name tags and folders. "This weekend, you'll tour the campus, meet instructors, and even get to sit in a real flight simulator. This academy was founded on the belief that aviation belongs to everyone," he said, looking meaningfully around the room. "No matter where you come from, no matter what anyone's ever said about you, you belong in the sky if your heart leads you there." Tyrese felt a lump form in his throat again. He remembered Miss Perkins at the check-in counter, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "Kids like you can't even afford the snacks here." But here he was, standing on the threshold of a dream that no one could take from him. After orientation, they were taken on a walking tour. Tyrese soaked up every detail: the control towers, the sparkling new classrooms, the hangars filled with planes of every shape and size. At one point, they passed a wall lined with plaques and awards. Mr. Donovan paused and pointed to a new addition, a plaque etched with bold letters. Tyrese leaned in to read. "The Tyrese Carter Scholarship Fund, supporting future aviators in memory of Amelia Carter." He froze. His breath caught in his chest. His mother's name, Amelia Carter. Right there, carved in silver for the world to see. Mia leaned over and whispered, "Is that about you?" Tyrese nodded slowly, his voice barely a whisper. "It's for my mom." A few students glanced over, some smiling in encouragement, others giving small nods of respect. Mr. Donovan clapped a hand on Tyrese's shoulder. "You come from strong wings, son. You're going to soar." Tyrese blinked quickly, trying to hold back tears. In that moment, he knew he wasn't just carrying his mother's dreams anymore. He was honoring them, living them, and maybe, just maybe, inspiring others to do the same. Outside, a small training plane took off into the open sky, climbing higher and higher until it was just a silver glint in the sun. Tyrese tilted his head back, watching it disappear into the blue. One day, he whispered to himself, "That'll be me." The morning sun poured into the academy courtyard, painting the runways in soft gold. Tyrese stood at the edge of the tarmac, heart hammering in his chest. Today was the day he would get his first taste of flight, not just in a simulator, but in a real plane. "Group A, over here," called an instructor wearing mirrored sunglasses and a sharp navy uniform. His name tag read Captain Ramirez. Tyrese jogged over, joining Mia and a few other wide-eyed students. A row of training planes, small and sleek, gleamed under the rising sun. Tyrese's palms tingled with anticipation. Captain Ramirez clapped his hands. "All right, aviators. Who's ready to touch the sky?" A few nervous chuckles rippled through the group. Tyrese couldn't stop smiling. "You'll each get to co-pilot today," the captain explained. "We'll stay close to the field, but you'll handle the basics: throttle, altitude adjustments, and even a few simple turns. This is about feeling the aircraft in your hands. Trust it. Trust yourself. Tyrese's excitement nearly lifted him off the ground. His mother had always told him, flying isn't just about machines. It's about heart. When his name was called, Tyrese followed Captain Ramirez across the tarmac. Their plane, a Cessna 172, looked even smaller up close, but something about it felt right. Inside, the cockpit was a wonderland of dials, gauges, and switches. Tyrese buckled in, his hands trembling slightly as he put on his headset. "Relax, Tyrese," Ramirez said with a grin. "You're about to do something most people only dream about." The engine roared to life, vibrating through the seat and into Tyrese's bones. As they taxied to the runway, Ramirez explained every move, adjusting the throttle, checking the flaps, monitoring the instruments. When they reached the end of the strip, the captain turned to him. "Ready to help me take her up?" Tyrese swallowed hard and nodded. "All right, hand on the yoke. Easy, steady." The plane accelerated, the runway blurring beneath them. Then, like magic, the wheels lifted off the ground, and they were soaring into the air. Tyrese gasped. The earth fell away, shrinking into a patchwork of green and gray. He felt weightless, free, powerful. "You're flying, Tyrese," Captain Ramirez said over the headset, his voice full of warmth. "You're really flying." Tears prickled Tyrese's eyes, but he blinked them away. He tightened his grip on the yoke, feeling the plane respond, almost like it was an extension of himself. They climbed to a comfortable altitude, and Ramirez gave Tyrese more control. "Try a gentle left turn," he instructed. Tyrese turned the yoke carefully, watching the horizon tilt. The plane arced gracefully through the sky, responding to his touch like it had been waiting for him. A wild laugh bubbled out of Tyrese's chest. "This is amazing. You've got the hands of a natural pilot," Ramirez said. "You sure you've never done this before?" Tyrese grinned. "Only in my dreams." They spent the next 20 minutes gliding through the sky. Ramirez pointed out landmarks, a glistening river, the academy's campus, a shimmering lake far in the distance. But Tyrese hardly heard. His whole being was tuned to the rhythm of the plane, the whisper of the wind, the steady hum of the engine. This was what his mother had seen for him. Not just traveling the world. Not just flying. Belonging in the sky. Eventually, Ramirez guided him back toward the runway. "All right, co-pilot," he said. "Let's bring her home." Under his instructor's guidance, Tyrese helped line up the approach, feeling the descent in his bones. When the wheels kissed the tarmac and the plane slowed to a stop, he realized he was grinning so hard his cheeks hurt. They climbed out of the plane, and Ramirez clapped him on the back. "You did outstanding up there." "I mean it. You've got something special." Tyrese's heart swelled. "Thank you, sir." As they walked back to the building, other students gathered, buzzing about their own flights. Mia ran up, her face alight. "How was it?" Tyrese laughed. "It's better than I ever imagined." They compared notes, their excitement bouncing back and forth like electricity. Later that afternoon, there was a debriefing in the main hall. The academy's director, a woman named Dr. Lanning, stood at the podium. "I want to commend you all," she said, her voice strong and inspiring. "Today, you took your first steps into a bigger world. Aviation is not just about skill. It's about courage, discipline, and heart. And I saw a lot of heart out there today." Her eyes swept across the room, and for a fleeting moment, Tyrese felt her gaze linger on him. Afterward, as he wandered the halls, he found himself back in front of the scholarship plaque, the one bearing his mother's name and his own. He stood there for a long moment, tracing the letters with his eyes. "You flew today, Mom," he whispered. "We flew together." The academy bell rang in the distance, signaling dinner, but Tyrese lingered a little longer. Outside the window, another plane lifted into the sky, soaring higher and higher. He smiled. This was just the beginning. The final evening at the academy arrived faster than Tyrese could have imagined. The courtyard had been transformed into a celebration space, with twinkling string lights crisscrossing above and rows of tables filled with smiling families, instructors, and staff. A gentle breeze carried the scent of grilled food and fresh flowers, and somewhere a live band tuned their instruments. Tyrese sat at one of the front tables, nervously adjusting the cuffs of his crisp white shirt. He wasn't used to this kind of attention. He had come here thinking he was just another kid with big dreams. But over the past few days, people had started looking at him differently, not because of who his father was, but because of who he was becoming. At the center stage, Dr. Lanning took the microphone. Her voice rang out clear and warm. "Tonight, we celebrate not only your achievements, but the dreams that brought you here. dreams that will carry you beyond these skies, into a future you will help shape. Applause filled the courtyard. And to close our evening, she continued, we'd like to invite one of our young aviators to share a few words. Someone who reminded us all why we dare to dream in the first place. Tyrese's heart skipped. Please welcome Tyrese Carter. The spotlight swung toward him. For a moment, he froze. All the noise faded, the clinking glasses, the rustle of the wind, even the music. He felt only the weight of the moment, and the memory of his mother's gentle voice in his mind. When you speak from your heart, son, the world listens. Slowly, Tyrese stood. The applause was a soft encouragement, a wave carrying him toward the stage. He stepped up to the microphone. It loomed in front of him, but he didn't flinch. He cleared his throat, took a breath, and began. Good evening, everyone, he said, his voice a little shaky at first. My name is Tyrese Carter. I'm 15 years old, and ever since I can remember, I've wanted to fly. The audience leaned in. My mom used to say the sky wasn't the limit. It was just the beginning. She dreamed that one day I would wear a pilot's wings. She's the reason I'm here today. Tyrese paused, feeling the lump rise in his throat. He pushed through it. Some people look at kids like me and think they already know our story. They look at what we wear, or where we come from, and decide what we're capable of. He glanced across the crowd. Some heads nodded, others sat still, listening intently. But what they don't know, Tyrese continued, voice growing stronger, is that dreams are not limited by zip codes. Passion doesn't come with a price tag. And heart comes from believing, even when nobody else does. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd. I came here thinking maybe I didn't belong. But today, flying that plane, I realized something. We all belong here. We all deserve a chance to chase what sets our souls on fire. He smiled, remembering the feel of the yoke in his hands, the endless blue stretching ahead. And I promise you this, no matter what anyone says, no matter what obstacles get thrown in the way, I'm going to keep flying. And one day, I'll look down from the captain's seat of a plane and know that I made it not just for me, but for every kid who was told they couldn't. The crowd erupted into applause, louder, longer than Tyrese had expected. Some people stood, cheering. He saw Mia whistling with 2 fingers in her mouth, saw Captain Ramirez nodding proudly, saw his father standing at the back of the courtyard, hands clasped in front of him, eyes shining. Tyrese stepped back from the microphone, feeling a warmth in his chest that no words could fully capture. As he returned to his seat, Dr. Lanning caught his arm and whispered, "Your mother would be so proud." Tyrese swallowed hard and nodded. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of congratulations, hugs, and promises to stay in touch. Photos were taken. Scholarships were announced, including new ones in Tyrese's name, funded by the airline his father helped build. Late that night, after the party had wound down, Tyrese found himself walking alone toward the empty runway. The stars stretched overhead, infinite and dazzling. He sat down on the cool pavement, feeling the night breeze against his skin, and closed his eyes. "Mom," he whispered to the sky, "we did it. We really did it." Somewhere inside him, he felt her presence, strong and steady, like the wind beneath a plane's wings. Tyrese opened his eyes and smiled. Tomorrow, he would fly again. And the day after that. And the day after that. The sky wasn't the limit. It was just the beginning.